All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am super excited to welcome two of our very strategic partners here at Cockroach Labs, AWS and PwC, to talk specifically around navigating regulatory requirements and compliance requirements, and how that impacts technology decisions and IT decision-making. So today we have John Mascry, who's a partner at PwC UK, and Rob Lyle, who's a principal solutions architect focusing on security compliance for FSI customers. But I will let them both do their own introductions as to what that means and how they work with customers on a day-to-day. So, John, let's start with you.
So yes, within PwC, I lead our financial services, cloud and data transformation. What that really means is helping our clients solve their business problems leveraging cloud and data. A lot of it focused from a PwC perspective, from the risks that our clients face, the regulations that our clients face, driving the transformation to drive real value within their organizations.
Rob, same question.
Hi, everyone. Rob Lyle, Scottish Rob, in case there's another one. I've been with AWS for 7 years now. I initially started managing a team of security and compliance solution architects that covered EMEA. Then I went to become an individual contributor, which means I spend more time with customers now. My focus is global financial services customers, all the biggest customers you can imagine, with sometimes the largest challenges and opportunities. I look at taking difficult compliance problems and making them more straightforward. So making technology fit the opportunity and the problem from the customer. Explaining how AWS, the platform, and the 143 security standards and compliance frameworks that we struggle to get every year can help them on their compliance journey, and how to make complicated things straightforward. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. First question that I wanted to get into is for John specifically. So John, you work with some of the leading, largest UK financial services institutions. Right now, what do you see as being, the thing that keeps a CIO up at night? What are they thinking about? What do they need to solve for?
So more recently, I'll cover three things, but more recently, cyber's always been high on the agenda, but since Scattered Spider, our phones have been ringing off the hook with regards to support as to what we need to do to make sure that we're safe and secure in the new world. So that's really gone up and driven off the Richter scale at the moment. Within financial services, then, it's dealing with the legacy, the challenges associated with the legacy, allied to a really complex regulatory and compliance regime. Now, that manifests itself in many ways. 74% of CEOs think that the regulatory landscape is just going to get even harsher, and there's going to be more transformation driven by the regulation. So on an aging infrastructure, that level of change and that level of instability across your entire estate is really, really worrying the CIO, who's also working within a limited budget as well. You tie all of those things together and throw them in the melting pot, there is a massive fear of outage. Primarily, don't impact the customer, but secondarily, regulatory sanction. Again, we see a lot of organizations across financial services dealing with the regulators and regulatory intervention and fines associated with their control over the data as well.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, John here mentioned aging technology, which of course would lead to maybe modernization and efforts to move to the cloud. I'd love your perspective on some of these regulatory requirements that have been put in place. How is that changing the, culture and the way that customers are accelerating their move to the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, cloud computing has come about really through needs, consolidation and optimization of problems which have been around since people started building data centers. So customers are looking for ways to focus on their core business model, their core function, and to worry less about undifferentiated heavy lifting, like running a data center, managing stock, buying things in the right time, overcapacity, and things like that. Yeah. So many of the old problems that used to be in the hands of customers who perhaps are in banking or finance or something, they don't really want to be buying racks and racks of servers and managing them and maintaining them and paying for maintenance. So the shared responsibility model at AWS takes a lot of that away. And I mentioned 143 security standards and compliance frameworks earlier. A lot of that contributes directly to a customer that comes onto AWS and helps them meet their compliance objectives, whether it be SOC 2, ISO 27000, or GDPR or DORA. Yeah. I've been talking to a lady called Dora for the last 2 years, it feels like. And the objectives of DORA are marvelous. How to get there is what we try and help customers with at AWS. Resilience has been in our blood since the year dot, since 2006. The first services were available. We've built our infrastructure to be resilient. So we're not concerned about the ever-increasing demands of regulatory, what would you call them, rules or objectives or statements that are given to customers. And the way they get interpreted and the way they get implemented varies. One size doesn't fit all. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of services that customers can choose how much responsibility they want to take and how much responsibility they want to give to us. And we spend a lot of time earning trust to help them with the regulatory objectives.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up DORA because that's my next question for John. You mentioned resiliency. DORA now calls for organizations to have an RTO, or recovery time objective, of 2 hours when an outage happens. 2 hours feels like a long time if you were trying to access your bank account or deposit a check or something. And so it feels like when we're talking about mission critical, instant economy, an RTO needs to be a lot less. And you heard Peter Mattis up here earlier talking about how many outages are happening per week for the average organization and how it impacts the business. So I would love, John, from your perspective, working with leading FSI customers, what should a target RTO really be for mission critical applications? And if there's any message there around our partnership, feel free to throw it in. No.
That feels like a leading question. Yeah. It has to be almost instantaneous, and the recovery from any outage. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. We talk about 2 hours. If you look back to July 2024, and this is something that was out in the media, the Bank of England with SWIFT had a problem that they weren't able to start on the Monday morning. The chat system was out for 4 hours, just over 4 hours, associated with a data challenge and a data corruption. And it was, the type of impact that you have then within national infrastructure. Luckily, they processed all the payments they needed to process that day, which is great, but it can stop people moving houses. It can impact overall economies because you're playing around with treasury systems, moving money to make sure that you've got liquidity in the right place to perform your trade functions. So, within DORA, 2 hours, it's not acceptable. You've got to architect simply, and you've got to ensure that your RTO is within seconds, if possible.
Absolutely. A lot of customers are wanting to look to the cloud for solving those types of, RTO requirements, max resiliency. So, Rob, I would love to kind of get your perspective on when it comes to the regulatory requirements and meeting these compliance requirements, why are customers really specifically looking to migrate or adopt a cloud framework as part of that strategy?
Well, DORA was a great place to start. building resilience into AWS, I mentioned a cellular architecture, and we have availability zones, then we have regions, then we have a partition. From day one, the objectives of many of the regulations, especially DORA, have been designed into how we operate. And the compliance teams are beginning to recognize in many large organizations that we can do a lot of the work and give observability that's required for second line and third line audit. So first, second, and third line of defense. So imagine in a classic data center that everyone's scared, many CIOs are scared of discovering the once white, now yellow computer under a desk still plugged into the production network. That type of thing is literally impossible. It doesn't exist on AWS. You can get through software-defined infrastructure an exact catalog of everything that's operating under your remit and everything that's contributing to your critical or important functions, to use a DORA term. So it's very easy to have the observability, the reporting, and very, very quick response times. There's no physical things that need to be moved. So how you design your response, how you design the management of an incident is within your own grasp. And we have many services that can give you 5-minute response time, or hours, or days. Sometimes being the fastest, most secure, most resilient thing isn't what you need. If you can accept a performance degradation, you can save a bit of money. So we have many, many services to give customers the choice of meeting the objectives that come from a compliance team.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. John, kind of building on what Rob mentioned about cloud and all of this talk about resiliency, obviously we work together with customers and prospects who are trying to solve those challenges and looking for distributed, multi-active types of databases that have the consistency that they need for their financial workloads. When you're working with a customer, what would you say are kind of these red flags that you might recognize within their database architecture when it comes to needing to meet, requirements of these regulators? What is that big red flag?
Well, the first one tends to be a challenge with the legacy, that there just isn't the documentation. People don't know how it fits together anymore.
It's the yellow computer again.
Exactly. So just that lack of control around the environment that in which we're operating is critical. Understanding the quality of your data then within your legacy, and also understanding the lineage and how many times you're transforming the data and how pure that data is. Really understanding your baseline is critical. But then what you see in the existing architecture is, there is no active. There are plenty of single points of failure. A lot of time, there may be backups. There may not be backups. There may not be the instructions as how to restore the backup. So a total loss of control across the whole estate is probably the biggest red flag that I would see, and actually where the regulators are really wading in at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Control of your data and your databases is going to be important. So Rob, when we're talking about, selecting databases in order to modernize that infrastructure, gain control, gain all of the resiliency requirements that they need, can you talk a little bit about these database segments and distributed SQL specifically, and how we're helping customers in the space to solve, everything that we're talking about so far with resilience?
Yeah, so we get challenged often in AWS. We've got too many services and things. We've got 15 database engines for customers to choose from. Again, that's to give customers choice so they can choose the right horse for the right race. And that's really important. You don't need to be the biggest, best, fastest thing all the time. The infrastructure that we build and provide and operate is a fabulous foundation to build lots of, and we're very proud of our partners. We have millions of customers using our service daily and over 140,000 partners, fabulous partners like PwC as well, and Cockroach, obviously. And this enriches the choice that customers have, so they can be very precise about getting the right price point and performance point and the right technology to crack that specific nut. So fundamentally, it's a layered approach where the infrastructure, we've done the undifferentiated data center building and operation, lovely big, highly capable EC2 instances, and then you can put a marvelous database engine on top of that that meets the specific RPO and RTO that the customer expects for a given use case. And any one of my customers that are global financial services customers, they have different workloads. Not all workloads are made equal as well. So you'll have different performance points and different levels of resilience. And DORA demands, for example, all the critical or important functions have to be identified, and those are the things that would be looked at in an inspection, for example.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit to a topic that we haven't talked about, which is data privacy and data sovereignty. Another part of the requirements that regulators are pushing, making sure your data doesn't leave a certain country or jurisdiction. So, John, I would love to kind of hear your perspective on where the challenge lies in order to achieve that, and how our partnership is helping customers when it comes to data locality.
So, the challenges of data residency and maintaining data residency, plus that sovereignty around the data and the need to, in the modern world, see end-to-end what's happening in business. And I'll say in business broadly. I spend a lot of time in the payment space, but if you think about trade, you may pay for some goods in one country. It goes across 2 borders, 2 FX changes to buy the goods in China. It's quite a complex process. Understanding where you are in that process from the originating country, when the data can't leave the other countries, historically was nigh on impossible. But now the ability to have the distributed data in a single pane, whilst the data not leaving the individual geography, gives us technologies that enable us to provide a transparency that we haven't been able to access. Well, we have been able to access previously, but not legally. Yeah. Now we've got the regulations in around it. This gives us a solution to be able to provide the customer solutions to really understand what they're doing, where they're doing it, why they're doing it from a single place. So it opens up so many doors to solving that problem.
Yeah. Awesome. Rob, want your take on this as well when it comes to kind of AWS, the partnership, how you're helping customers to solve specifically this challenge around data sovereignty.
One of my favorite topics. When we start talking encryption and security, I get excited, I'm sorry. Sovereignty is one of these things, one size does not fit all, and that's really important. Some customers, AWS was designed to deal with the most critical, most secure workloads you can imagine. We're talking defense, global banking systems, markets, etc. So that's for everyone. Everyone gets that, no matter who you are. You can be a mom and pop gig round the corner. You can be a global bank. It's the same EC2 instance. You'll get the same infrastructure. In, I think it was May 2023, Matt Garman created our digital sovereignty pledge, where we stated that you have absolute control over where you will put your data. It will stay there. You can then have assurance over who accesses the data, and then you can encrypt everything everywhere. And the fourth thing, I can't remember the fourth thing. Those are the exciting ones that I got to. Yeah, it was resilience, of course, the fourth thing. You can rely on your data being there once you put it there. S3 storage was designed with 11 nines durability. It's a very important word. It would take billions of years to prove it. We'd have to wait a long time to see if the thing went. But all of these things contribute to the sovereign nature that customers are put in charge of their data. We treat all customer data the same. It is customer data. We don't touch it without being given permission, and that's fundamental. Whether it's PII or health information, we have HIPAA, we have FedRAMP, we have SOC 2. All of these attestations and third-party validated, Ernst & Young are our auditors, validate that these controls that we put in place to monitor and validate the sovereignty are all kept in place. And it builds a huge amount of trust with customers that we're able to operate at the scale we do, and yet maintain precision over who accesses the data when and where the data is. It's very important for us.
Yeah. That's what makes kind of this better together values so incredible for customers, is the security of the infrastructure layer, and then the ability to run partner services like a CockroachDB distributed and meet those data locality requirements. One more question for each of you, and it's going to be about a topic that I haven't mentioned yet, which is Gen AI. You knew it was coming. Would like your take on how you think that this is going to affect regulators, and what's coming next. Talk about data sovereignty. Again, you heard from Peter, the rise in agentic AI and the scale that we're going to see. So there's going to be regulation coming. So just kind of one open-ended question, but what you think is kind of coming, hot takes to wrap us up.
John, you want to go first?
No, you go first.
I get excited. AWS love it. We want to democratize AI, and generative AI in particular, and make it available to all our customers. The opportunities are amazing out there. However, with every great new shiny toy in technology comes an amount of responsibility, and compliance and governance and laws will come as well. So what's important is that customers are able to adapt and react very quickly. And so we created the Bedrock service, which makes foundation models available from AI21, Anthropic, and many other, Stability AI as well as our own Amazon Nova foundation models. They're amazing things to test and validate and use with far more creativity. We're way beyond chatbots now. Customers are being very creative with money laundering inspection. And the new goal is data, information and data. There's information in there that generative AI and traditional machine learning can scale and access huge amounts of data and enable customers to get marvelous value from their data. However, coming back to the compliance angle and the incoming EU AI Act, the Canadian Act, and others, it's important to adapt quickly and without harming your business. So there's a push-pull. The compliance and responsible AI is very important. So is leveraging the opportunity that generative AI and AI in general brings.
Yeah. John?
And it's such a big question. All the time you've been talking, I was thinking, where do I start on this? So, in PwC, we focus on responsible AI, and we start with responsible AI. As you move into agentic AI, then, similar to the challenges that you see with the legacy estates that have got fragmented, and I'll come back to that in a second. You've really got to ensure the efficacy of your agents. Make sure that you are doing your best and proving the efficacy of your agents so that the regulators will want to know how are you avoiding your hallucinations. So that's architecting your agents for one task against one set of data. There'll then be the customer demands, making sure, first of all, you're protecting the customer, but as you move into the agentic world and you've got your agents processing real-time conversations with end customers, the speed of transaction and accessibility to that data is going to be phenomenal. So the demands on the data and access to that data are going to be phenomenal, which then takes you back to the final point around the legacy. You only get there if you architect well for the future. You really understand what you are building for in the future as you migrate away from your legacy. Have a clear vision of that. Make wise choices around your understanding of where you're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, and then work on the transition states towards that vision that supports the agentic agenda that you want to follow.
Yeah. Going to be very interesting to see how everything plays out over the next couple of years. We are right on time, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. But Rob, John, thank you both so much for being here. They'll be sticking around for the social hour if you guys have specific questions based off of the things that we've talked about. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.